you'll see that he'll follow the jet sweep afterwards and he'll ignore my running back, and usually I can go free at that safety, make him miss, and get a touchdown there. If you've watched the NFL over the last few years, you probably noticed the relatively large amount of jet motion that teams are running. This is a series of plays that work to get really quick receivers quickly to the edge, which in turn holds the linebackers and opens up other misdirections off of that. In Madden this year, you see lots of complaints about difficulties in the run game, how even with light safeties in the box, users can shoot into the backfield untouched. The main reason for this is offensive linemen getting stuck on double teams and not peeling off quick enough to track the user in many cases. So if you're running traditional run schemes like inside zone or even power, which do really nothing to conflict the user backer, you will be in a load of trouble. RPOs can be a good way of conflicting the user backer, but with man coverage being so prevalent this year, a lot of the RPO pass options can be taken out completely. Now, the same year that RPOs were introduced, we also got the jet sweep series, which have been relatively underused since their introduction, but they offer us another way of conflicting and holding run defenders to free up the space and time that we need in the run game. This video will go over the most important things that you need to know to be successful with them. You'll find them scattered all throughout the different playbooks, but I find the jet sweep series in single back doubles to be one of the absolute best. So I have it open up right here in the Carolina Panthers playbook, but I'm sure you can find it in many others as well. So we'll use it for the main examples here, but most of these concepts will carry over to other types of jet sweep, and I'll even go over a couple of different ones in this video. But with this one, if you're running my Panthers ebook and the PAY glance play that I made, a few videos ago, this will be a great wrinkle to add into your game. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started with jet sweep at a single back doubles, and we'll just for now go up against a simple too high man coverage even defense. So right away, if you are running the jet sweep against one of these types of defenses and just against the CPU or against a user linebacker that isn't particularly aggressive, you can really easily get to the edge and turn up field for a big chunk of yards. Just like this, nobody will shed from the defensive line, and usually you can get a huge chunk of yards with very easy work. Now you'll notice here I have obviously a quick slot receiver, but also under single back, when you're doing these types of plays, it seems to be much better than shotgun in terms of the handoff quickness and the handoff speed and the ability to get control of your player immediately after the handoff. So it's immediately when I get it, I can turn upfield right here and immediately start getting yards, and then hopefully take that to the house before any of the linebackers can get into the play. When you run this same look out of shotgun, so it's the jet sweep with the fake handoff to the running back, so same everything, you'll notice, and it may not be immediately evident through the video here, but you'll notice that it's a little bit slower and a little bit sluggier. So when you do get that handoff, you can't really turn it up immediately. Now I have feel in here, which is obviously a big difference, but when you run it, you will notice there is a bit of a difference there. So that's really the first thing to take away from this, is that if you really want to run this, I think running it out of single back is your best option. I haven't really played around with it too much at a pistol, but because nobody's really running anything at a pistol. So if you're looking to work this into more of your scheme, I'd try to look for a good jet sweep series under center. But shotgun's still decent. The other thing is, if you are running this at a shotgun or maybe pistol, you'll notice also the option to do the jet touch pass. So here you don't have the fake to the running back, and actually the running back becomes a blocker to your side. So conceptually, you would think that this is the better option because now you have more numbers towards the run, but it actually ends up working not as good because the fake handoff will hold these linebackers. But if we're doing the jet sweep, it will be kind of like an outside zone type of thing where these guys immediately go to the edge. And so although you have one more blocker, you actually have kind of two extra defenders to to work against. So right here, you see how those linebackers work to the edge, and in some cases you can follow your block, but it can get a little muddy sometimes. So really, the reason why this type of play is so good is that you do get that motion to that slot receiver, and the defender that is aligned on top of him, this slot defender right here, does not motion, and you don't get it. Or if he, even if he doesn't motion, you don't get any sort of bump in the alignment from the linebackers or the safeties, and so essentially you get a +1 to your play side, and you have defenders wasted on the backside. So not to mention that it's a quick handoff and a quick way to get to the edge. So really, really good stuff. Now, if you are coming up against somebody that is good and aggressive with their user, what they can do obviously is once they see that, they can scrape over here, and a lot of times they'll be unblocked. And if you can't make them miss, it'll likely be a short gain. So that's one important thing to note. But if we run this whole jet sweep series properly, we can kind of work our way around that. The other thing is that if you are coming up across single high defenses like cover 3 or cover 1, generally this isn't the best option to take because now you have an overhang defender there that you have to deal with. If all goes well, the wide receiver over there will block in and block that overhang defender right here, the safety, and then you have a corner backed off over here that you'll try to make miss. So if the blocking goes well, it's not, see what usually happens is he misses, and so you can't get as much of a gain there. So if you are, coming up against single high, potentially, you might want to avoid this type of run series altogether. But if you're playing through it and your wide receiver, you notice out of the particular formation that you're running this out of seems to be picking up on his blocks, go for it. But in general, I think this is more of something you run against too high, and then if you see single high, likely you have more passing options because there's only so much you can do with single high. It's either cover 3 or cover 1, and most people have their good sort of beaters for that. Now, off of jet sweep, we also have the zone fake jet. So rather than handing off to the jet player, we are handing it off to the running back. Now, conceptually, this isn't a great play. And let me just go to zone coverage for now because there's some differences. If we are coming up against an over-aggressive user that goes to go tackle that jet player over there, then we have one fewer run defender, which is good. But we also have, the same reason why the jet is beneficial in that we have one more offensive player to the play side. It's also works against us in a sense if we want to hand off zone to the weak side. Because what will happen is that we'll lose, if we're running jet to the weak side, we will lose a blocker to this side, and this slot defender right here will usually be free to make a play. Now, if the user linebacker escapes from here essentially, so what I'll do is I'll just mimic that by doing this. So he's following the jet in, against most players, they will actually follow that jet enough that he's taken out of the box. And then you do have numbers here, but usually that slot defender is pretty good, and so it's usually only just a marginal gain. So unlike RPOs where you are reading somebody after the snap and then doing the right thing, so you want to be right every single time. If they react to the run, you pass. If they react to the pass, you run. In this case, you don't have any sort of option, so you have to kind of get a feel for how they're playing. So what I usually like to do is early on in the game, run one of the two, whether it's the jet sweep or the fake off of that, and just see how the user defender reacts. If he's soft right here, I'll keep running the jet until he's not. If he's aggressive to the edge, then the next time I run this, I'll run the fake off of that. And I'll come back to that periodically through the game based off the tendencies that I'm seeing. And so in that sense, it's not great like an option in that you're always right if you read it right. Here you have to build it off of the tendency of your opponent, and unfortunately we don't have the ability to scout them out beforehand, so you have to develop that out throughout the game. So usually early on I like to do that, and then sometimes in key situations, like I need especially in the goal line, if I need some guaranteed yardage, I can go to the play that will be beneficial against the type of guy I'm coming up against. Now, I did mention that if it is zone coverage there and we're running the fake zone, this defender right here does a pretty good job of staying home and playing good defense there. But if we are coming up against man coverage, here's what's kind of cool about this. And obviously, you're going to come across a lot of man coverage. If we assume that our jet motion is affecting the user linebacker, so he's out of the play a little bit, you kind of get a win-win situation against man coverage. Because with man coverage, not only if you run the jet sweep, does the slot defender he's just too late. He'll never be able to make a play against your jet sweep. But against the fake zone, he'll actually, after the snap, chase the jet. So he's kind of in no man's land. He's not going to be defending the jet, and he'll chase him after the play. So if you're running weak zone to that side, plus the jet is affecting the user, usually you have one more blocker than they can have on the other side. So in this case, you'll watch him right here. I picked the wrong play there. But if you watch him, and if I actually pick the zone fake jet, you'll see that he'll follow the jet sweep afterwards, and he'll ignore my running back, and usually I can go free at that safety, make him miss, and get a touchdown there. So we are using this terrific jet sweep right here that if nothing's accounted for, we're easily getting to the edge and getting big chunks of yards. Then the next time we come to that and the opponent sees that, they will be a little bit more capable or susceptible to following that jet. Means that not only is he taken out of the play in some sense, but most importantly, he's taken out of shooting gaps, right? So that motion, even if that motion doesn't carry him all the way out here, it'll likely keep his aggression towards shooting gaps completely out of the picture. So rather than just running straight up inside zone where anybody can read that and anybody decent can just shoot that gap, now we're holding him, making him hesitate, and so he's not hitting us in the backfield. Plus, if we're playing this against man coverage, this slot defender is taken out as well. So that's really, really cool. The other thing you can do is play around with your alignments if you are coming up against zone coverage. So against man coverage, totally fine to run either the jet or the fake off of that. But if it is zone and this slot defender is a little bit better at holding his ground and playing the run, you can do things like flipping your formation. So you probably might not be able to do this too often. Good players might catch up on it, but what you'll look for is a lot of times if you flip it, this backer will exit the box. And so now you have essentially 6-on-5 and you can just audible to a dive or a trap because you have that light box, and that'll make it also harder to shoot. But if you have, say he doesn't go out and this is a user defender and he brings him in manually, but now, again, you are affecting that linebacker with the jet motion right here. And so if you run the fake off of this, then you're able to get that one more player against their defense essentially. So against man, it's easy because that man defender will follow the jet, but against zone, you have to do kind of tricky things with the flipping right here. The other thing is that if you're running this to the right on under center, you do get a really weird handoff animation right here, so that could kind of throw you off a little bit. But just keep that in mind that it is actually the handoff. And the last thing about this part of the series that I want to say is that although the jet sweep itself is better from under center, I think the fake off of that is actually better in shotgun. So depending on what you are planning on doing, you might want to keep that into consideration. The reason why I say that is I think when you're doing the fake handoff under center, the path of the handoff isn't really good. It's kind of more towards the A gap, where it should be kind of towards the open B gap where guys are evading. So if you are running that, just be really, really patient. Do not sprint right away. You want to get the handoff, cut it outside a little bit because the handoff is a little bit too inside. Whereas with the shotgun, I think the handoff path is better. So same thing, we're affecting the user to come out here. The man defender is going to follow the jet afterwards, and then we have all this space to run with for at least 10 yards. And against odd or bare fronts like 3-3-5 wide that you're seeing, things don't really change. It works just as effectively. So right here, we're running the jet sweep. We're able to get to the edge really, really quickly. Usually you won't be able to do that as easily because of user click-ons, but still we'll be able to do a good chunk of yards. And same thing to the fake. Your user will be right here. Usually this is a really good gap shooting formation where, if they see inside zone or dive, they'll be able to get in there because you have the B gaps closed in with these defensive ends, and then you have this nose tackle, and it's really quite easy to exploit those double teaming guards. But here, if there's any sort of hesitation because of the jet, and I think I picked the wrong play again. Yeah, I picked the jet again, so I'll just go back. Yeah, if there's any sort of hesitation right there, he will not be able to shoot you in the backfield. And again, we're taking that slot defender out of the picture. And although we get a bad handoff right there, we're patient with it and we find our opening for our gain. Now, one thing we should say is that against these formations where we start to get more guys on the defensive line, so bare fronts like this or double A gap, where you have fewer linebackers essentially at the linebacker level, then you can start to go back to your jet touch pass. Because if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said the reason why this is bad is because you get so many flowing linebackers. But in this case, you only have one linebacker, and all these guys on the actual defensive line will get blocked. So now in this case, and I should get off of him so he actually flows, now you have many more numbers right here, and you should be much better. So keep that in mind against some of these fronts. And like I was saying, same thing against double A gaps. So right here, just the mid blitz right here, we have so many guys on the defensive line. And so essentially you have zero flowing linebackers. And so now you should be able to get a block right there. And I ran right into the guy, but the numbers are in your favor. Let's just run that again for the sake of my own sanity right here. So again, mid blitz right here, the wide receiver will pick up the corner, the tight end will pick up the overhang guy, and the running back will pick up the safety, and all you have to do is just not run right into that guy. So there you got the numbers, and if you just follow the space, you'll be golden. Another thing you might want to look at is some of these I formation jet sweeps that are really, really good as well. So right here I'm in I form slot. This isn't in Carolina, unfortunately, but you can find it in playbooks like San Francisco, I think even Oakland, things like that. What's good here is that although you lose a blocker on the play side of your jet, meaning that essentially this corner over here is unblocked, there are some nice things on the back side of things. I mean, the jet sweep is so quick and so good that in some cases you can get to that edge. In some cases you can, like I just showed you there. But, your opponent might not know that essentially. So if, again, you're playing against a over aggressive user and they are, running with that jet right here, now your fake jet off of that is going to be much, much better because you also have a lead fullback. So if you remember from the single back version, once I was free on the fake jet, it was essentially one-on-one with the safety. Now you can try to make him miss, but sometimes it's difficult with user click-ons and things like that. But here, if the blocking works out nicely, again, the jet is moving or making this guy hesitate. The slot defender, if it's in man coverage, he will run after the slot defender, and then your lead blocker should be going after the safety right here. So you just follow him, and you should be doing a little bit better. Now, of course, the fullback isn't somebody that you can always trust. So take that with a grain of salt. So he's not always going to go right at the safety like I just showed you there. Sometimes he'll take over on somebody that block shed or something like that. But I think by and large, it's better option there. And against zone coverage, where this guy's a little bit more solid, and again, let's take the user slightly out of it, you will have him blocking him. So you're less solid on the jet, but you're much, much more solid right here on the fake off of that. So, depending on the type of tendencies, you also have this as an option. Now, you'll notice I'm not really talking about the play action off of this stuff for a few reasons. I mean, it would be nice to have this option off of that. So if you have over-aggressive users that are following that, you can also hit them with crossing routes and things like that over the middle. But there are issues with it, namely because you can't do any hot routes, and many of the stock combinations are really quite poor. But even if you find a really good one like this one, it's usually blocked really, really poorly. So this backside defensive end right here, in this case, even though this is a great play, and we'll show it here, you can't really trust your offensive lineman here. So the left tackle will just ignore him, and usually it's just going to be a free sack for your opponent. But let's just take him out of the play for the time being right here, and we come across some things like this where you're coming up against man coverage with crazy things like that. This motion can be really, really good for you, particularly this one. So there are many, the play actions off the jet sweep where this guy essentially just runs right out of bounds. I'm not sure why they did it like that, but some of them are smart enough to have him cut up field. And in a lot of cases, he either goes completely uncovered, or his move is actually pretty good, and he sometimes can beat his man defender. So in that case right there, the defender actually did a good job of staying with him. But if you run it a few times, unlike regular wheel routes, sometimes he does get open right there. In this case, the guy trailing him actually got caught up in traffic. So not something to really rely on, but weird things can happen, especially against man coverage. And if you don't get immediately sacked in the backfield, it can be a big play for you. But hopefully it's something going forward that they address, because the blocking really doesn't make too much sense. Like the left tackle just completely ignore his man, and it'll make things difficult for you. Now I want to end it with a revisit to gun tight slots here, which is in the Carolina Panthers playbook. And this is, there might be another one, but as far as I know, this is the only formation that has the jet sweep and doesn't have the motion beforehand. So what's great about this is that it's not a tell for the user, and there's a little bit of a fake handoff also for the running back that holds the CPU linebackers, and also it's just speaking from experience, it makes things confusing for the user linebacker as well. And so what'll happen is, you get this little touch pass right here, and if you don't get ridiculous sheds through the middle right here, you can easily get to the edge and do some nice work over there. And what's cool about it is that, based off of the alignment of your opponent's defense, you can easily flip it. So in this case, the strength is to this side, so we want it to run it to the right side. But if for whatever reason the strength was to this side, what we can do is just simply flip the play, and although you're running into a slower tight end, you have fewer defenders over there to deal with. So you have your ability to pick and choose there. And then on top of that, because there is no pre-snap motion, this is really the only one in the game that you can actually motion other guys pre-snap. So what you can do is you can take the blocker to this side and motion him over to the strong side. So now you have even one more number over there. And Thielen really isn't the best guy to be running this with, but you have more numbers over here, and if your no sheds go through, usually you'll be free for a big chunk of yards. Okay, so that's really it for the jet sweep series. I kind of ended off there with some less likely things, but a little bit more fun. I think by far the more spread under center stuff will be your best option, getting to the edge quickly, and then based off your opponent's tendencies you can do the fake zone off of that, which isn't a great play just on its own, but when you work it into this series, you see it can really take off and give you, the breathing room back that you need in the running game, because without anything to hold the user linebacker, like there's no play action in this game, so there's nothing to hold him. RPOs can be a good option, but if they're running heavy press man, they essentially don't need to worry about any of those quick passing routes over the middle, because slants will be taken away by one step ahead, and so they're free to shoot gaps. Inside zone, power, things like that, there's actually technically nothing to hold them. So this, I think, is actually a really good option to consider if you want to get some running game back into the mix, because if you're passing over and over and over again, especially against this one step ahead stuff, it's it can be a headache, and sometimes you just need a break, and sometimes you just need to pound the rock, and I think these jet sweep series will do that for you. Play around with the other things like I showed you there with I-form slot. You can lose a little bit of action on the jet sweep to gain a blocker on the fake, and that can potentially be explosive for you. And it's usually not something that's expected from your opponent, because usually they see that jet motion. They're like, oh, okay, somebody's just looking for some cheap yards that side, let me go shut that down. But then you hand it off to the other side and you're gone, especially against man coverage. It'll be really, really good off of that. Okay, so that's it for this one. I might do another one on another run concept that I think is really good against gap shooting linebackers, but for this, definitely try that out, see it in your playbook. I think single back doubles really is the best, but some of the shotgun ones will be good as well for you. Okay, so that's it for this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.